Yeah, or maybe a question, because since Lao is the person that is responsible for starting this, maybe a question of like, Lao, did you think this it would make it this far, and you'd have nothing to do with it?
Was this my idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't remember?
No.
Okay, I'll ask that question and I'll add in. I will remind you.
Wow, that's mad. I think I'm just like one of these guys that like just comes up with ideas.
Yeah,
It's actually kind of dangerous, to be honest, in the wrong places, because then you just end up with loads of stuff. I guess very quickly I would just say, it's quite humbling, to be honest, to be a part of something and then have it really grow and continue. But I just enjoy starting things that are cool, and really, the main props goes to yourselves. You've kind of held this thing down, really. Let's keep it raw. So it's really great to be able to pop in and just say, hey, great work, because I didn't do anything. But yeah, it's been really cool. I really enjoyed just seeing like this thing continue, and also the YouTube as well. So yeah, and I think that what they say apparently is that if you get to 20 episodes, you're good, from what I've been told. So you've kind of exactly. Yeah. So I think you've done pretty well. In terms
20
of
episodes, we might have still been recording on Skype.
Oh my god, we used to record on Skype. What were we thinking?
I didn't know any better.
Very happy when you finally listened to me.
Discovered, yes. Yeah, like my geography teacher said, Nigel takes a while sometimes, but he does good work, or something to that effect. I remember. Mr. Woodcock, parent even. Anyway, it isn't about me, or maybe we'll talk about it later. So, we all ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Radio Lao is ready. All right, we'll go in 3, 2. Hello and welcome to Story X Story, the podcast by mayamada that dives deep into stories across pop culture, plus gives you advice on creating your own. It is episode 200. We are deep into the triple digits now, so it's a special episode. I am still your co-host, Nigel.
I am Tazziii, content creator and co-host.
And as always, even 200 episodes in, we are bringing you interesting discussions with diverse voices. And to help us out as we mark this special occasion is the person who started it all, Lao K, mayamada co-founder, and I guess he does other stuff. I don't know what, but hello, Lao. Welcome back.
Hey, great to be back after, 200 episodes. Who would have thought?
Yeah, Lao is like Oppenheimer, who started the atomic bomb, is now here to witness what he has wrought on the world. So yeah, this is all your fault, Lao. But thanks for coming back. Good to hear from you. And yeah, we're gonna get into this. So we do have a film and anime to talk about. We're gonna be talking about Blue Giant. So not only is Lao the person who started the podcast, we'll get to that later. Also, your last episode with us was Whiplash, which is another musical themed story. So also wanted to make those ends meet. So that was episode 130, where we did a deep dive into Whiplash. This is a completely different tone, so we'll get into that. But yeah, looking forward to it. So we've got a bunch of ways to hear us. People hear us in different ways. You can subscribe to Story X Story wherever you get your podcast from. That includes Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also send us your feedback and your questions in different ways. You can send us a voice message on our Spotify for Podcasters page. You can email us, studio77@mayamada.com, or you can contact us on social media, on all the social media. So we're at mayamada on Twitter, at mayamada TV on Instagram and TikTok, or at Life of a W Gamer on Instagram and TikTok, or Tazziii on everything else. Also got Blue Sky, which mymatter.bsky.social. I'll work that into the notes proper for next season. But yeah, we're also on Blue Sky and posting stuff there when we can. A lot of social medias.
I've never even heard of Blue Sky.
You've not heard of Blue Sky?
No.
Have you quite literally been living under a rock and not looked up at the Blue Sky?
And funnily enough, I'm on Threads, so I guess I should have maybe heard of it. I think. Maybe I have and I just forgot, but I've definitely not been on there, that's for sure.
It's a Blue Butterfly app. It's what Twitter used to be, but better.
Oh.
Before, yeah. Anyway. We've also got a new website coming next year. So we are working on some, not quite rebranding, but brand refocusing. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, we've got some announcements there. It's going to mean a whole new website. In the meantime, there'll be some sort of changes to the current one, maybe a placeholder in there. So bear with us while we do that. You can still join the Studio 77 Discord. That will change as well. A lot of changes coming next year. But yeah, we want people to be part of the mayamada community. I want people to know what the mayamada brand is now and going forward. So a lot of things to come. But yeah, we'll be updating as those things get sorted. Before we get into today's story discussions, let's update you with where we are with the mayamada universe. We are right on the end of another season of Story X Story. So this is our last deep dive episode of season 6. So after this, we've got some special episodes. So if you've been listening to us for a while, you know we end the year with an episode that is like highlights and bloopers and behind the scenes stuff that doesn't make it into sort of final edit of episodes. We bunched it all into an episode and put that out. And then we do the wrapped episode, which is Tazziii and I counting down our quote-unquote favorite stories with an asterisk that Tazziii doesn't like picking favorites, and the order is not necessarily the order, and all those disclaimers that we'll repeat on the episode. But we manage it somehow. So we're going to be doing that as well. And then we take a recording break over January. So no new episodes, but we will have rewinds of past live streams, most likely from our end of year live stream that I'll speak about in a second. And then we'll be back for season 7 in February 2025, which sounds like, I mean, it is the future, but it sounds like far into the future. So, but a mere months we'll be back. So look forward to that. Keep us in your podcast feeds. There'll be stuff coming, and then join us for season 7. We will also have some new manga. So we're working on Origins Against All Odds, which is coming along nicely. Kickstarter backers will have got a sneak peek into draft pages. I think the final page in there will share more stuff over the coming weeks. But yeah, we're closing in on getting things ready for print, and it's looking good. We've made some changes, made some tweaks. It has been a long road, so thank you those who have kickstarted it, because you were there in the beginning and been very patient as we've shot past the original deadline, but we hope it will be worth the wait. This is a story that features Tazzii's character in the mayamada universe, and it will be a reflective and hope-filled manga about pursuing creative career goals in the face of resistance from those around you. So looking forward to getting that out and hopefully having an impact on people and just resonating. We will figure out a way with all the website changes to have like some kind of link to pre-order or order that book, so mayamada.com, and also some way to continue like being able to get the existing manga that we've got, Samurai Chef, Hot Lunch, Serious, which Lao wrote. So that's at least the first part, and then continued on with that. So we've got all ages stories within our own shared universe. Definitely check that out if you're into manga and maybe didn't know we make manga, because not everyone does. Some people think we just do games events. Speaking of games events, we are also wrapping up this year's Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign. So we have launched the campaign in 2022, and it's now become a yearly initiative to promote diversity and inclusion in the games industry and wider culture. So each year we try and build on the work that was done in the previous and continue that push. And we start with a snapshot of 40 players and makers. So that's our way of showcasing representation and trying to encourage more of it in future generations of talent. And then we go into our events, online, in-person events. So depending on when you're listening to this, we have a mere few days until the International Future Summit on December 14th. So that's a Saturday. And if it's after that, maybe VOD. If it's after that, then we'll put like the segments on YouTube. And then if it's after that, we'll have it on the podcast. We'll have the audio on the podcast feed over January. So some way to get a hold of that. And then next year we do it again. So we've got live streams, we do roundtable events, we do networking events, we do game jam events, we go to Comic-Con, sometimes we speak in some places, develop. So we try and get out as much as we can. And you can get involved. So either in the 40 photos, it's just not just people who work in games, but people who want to work in games, people who just like playing games, or the events, they're free events. And this year they've been helped to be free, thanks to support and sponsorship from Rocksteady Studios, who have been supporting the event for 3 years, for the first 3 years that we've been doing it. And it's just help us make it all like sustainable and make sure it's free for people as well, and just been a big part of helping us to inspire young people from underrepresented groups and drive that change in the games industry. So hopefully as the years go on, we'll get more support from more people in the games industry, or maybe not just the games industry, because everyone is a gamer. So that could mean any organizations. If you are interested, now's the time to get in touch as we plan next year's campaign and activities. So looklikeagamer.com and reach out. And then on our Twitch channel, we have a bunch of different shows that we put under the Studio 77 umbrella. So it's our platform where we talk to people in various creative industries like comics, video games, animation. We also play games as well. Sometimes we play them well, sometimes not. Although I feel we put in some heroic efforts on Pico Park. Like there's solid teamwork and perseverance there. So we've got a bunch of different shows. We have Studio 77 Report. That's where Tazziii and I recap the latest mayamada announcements and event news. We record it. We also stream it, so you can come and watch us recording it. And then the recording gets edited and then goes up on YouTube. Basically, the bloopers are taken out, so you can catch it there as well. We have casual conversations with comic creators. So we're going to be starting that next year. So from January, the next episode will be on January 21st. And that is a monthly series where I speak to a different comic creator about the craft of making comics and just them. It's about showcasing the human being behind the art. It's usually on the first Tuesday of each month, but the schedule can shift, so make sure you're following us on Twitch for that. And then we do our games night. So at the end of each month or thereabouts, we play a different game. We're going to work on fitting one in for December, if we can do that. Do the Gartic Phone. We usually, or at least the past couple of years, we've ended the year with Gartic Phone, which is just hilarious madness as well. And then everyone else can join in as well if you dare. So you can check that out. Follow us on Twitch. And also we're going to work on putting some of the past Games Night highlights on our YouTube channel as well. So get that going a bit more. If you're a young aspiring creative professional, or you know one, then you can check out the mayamada Showrunners Work Experience Program. So this has been a new thing. We've been doing it for about a year now, creating opportunities for young people aged 16 and up to work with our team across comic production, events, and content creation. And we had a lot of opportunities, particularly events and particularly the latest manga and our comics in general. A lot of behind the scenes work being done on future stories. 11th Hour, Lao especially, is actually a lot of movement on that. So some really good input from young creators being given an opportunity. So if you would like to be one of those, email us, showrunners@mayamada.com, to find out more. So that's where we are as we almost say goodbye to another year. That's where we are with the mayamada universe. Now let's talk about some of the stories that we've been enjoying this week.
This is the part where we have a spoiler-free discussion on what everyone has been playing, watching, or reading. And Lao, as our guest, do you want to go first?
Wow, talk about no pressure. And no, I say that because it's a spoiler-free discussion, and for some reason I ended up well, it's YouTube's fault. I ended up getting served a lot of Dragon Ball Z manga summaries, and for those that follow Dragon Ball Z, well, I should say Dragon Ball, but you know what I mean. Basically, I stopped watching the anime around about the Boost Saga. For those who know it, if you don't, then just
I mean, that was the last one.
Google it. Well, yeah, for Z, to be fair, and basically, I got served up Dragon Ball Super manga summaries. So is this skipping a lot of stuff? I already know it's skipping a lot because I can tell from the images. Again, no spoilers, so I won't describe the images, but they looked pretty cool. And somehow I've just been like listening to those. I had to actually stop myself, but I was just really amazed with how they could somehow, in my view, revive a story which I thought was pretty much done and dusted. So yeah, that was really interesting. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that Goku and Vegeta is in the story. And it was just interesting to see them doing what they usually do. You can imagine there's some training, there's some fighting, but there's some sticky situations. And I think the channel, I've forgotten the person's name, but they do such a great job of narrating the manga with screenshots, which I think they colored in. So it's a little bit more interesting visually. And also they've had some nice backing music as they simply described like all the different plot points, and also added their own commentary about some of the story decisions and like Easter eggs and whatnot. So I really enjoyed just listening to that and almost sort of reliving some of my youth and remembering those cool moments in the Dragon Ball Z series, but then also kind of getting an update of what Goku's been up to since then. And it's actually made me want to go and look into watching Dragon Ball Super, the anime, because, yeah, it seems like some really crazy things happen to take it to the point I was listening at. And I normally hate spoilers, but I was just like, what's going on? Actually, tell a lie. The reason I actually even started watching these stories was because a clip came up, and it was from one of the films with Broly from the Dragon Ball Z Super kind of saga. So I watched that fight, and it was so cool. And and Frieza was there as well, and I was like, wow, this is kind of nuts. So yeah, that kind of almost reinitiated me back in, and then I've just been kind of going through some different arcs. I'll probably end up going back. So that's one. But the other thing that I've been doing is, well, I recently learned that BBC iPlayer have One Piece in English, which was quite a surprise because I've got Crunchyroll and I was looking for a way to watch One Piece in the English dub because my wife has been watching One Piece because of the live action show, and we wanted to continue, but sometimes it's like maybe a bit much to kind of read subtitles. So I was like, okay, let me find a dub. So it was really cool to find out iPlayer has it, and again ended up reliving some of the kind of classic moments. Obviously with not her present, otherwise that'd be like spoilers and whatnot. And I won't say what those bits are, but I mean, to be fair, it's like 1,000 episodes in. It probably might not be a spoiler for many people, but I'll keep them to myself. But One Piece as well. So far, it's the big three that I've been dipping into. I haven't been watching Naruto though. No, definitely not. But are we allowed to include games in this?
Yeah, it's what we've been playing, reading, or watching. So
all right, so. Playing, it has to be Monster Hunter World. Oh my goodness. This game took me by surprise. It's one of those games where you get into it and then you're like, now I see.
Just to double check, World or Wilds?
World.
Okay. The online.
Yeah. So cool. So cool. Very deep, very broad. So it can be overwhelming if you allow it to be, but if you just get in there and just start doing quests, and then bit by bit you kind of dip into some of the detail, maybe watch a few videos on YouTube that kind of summarize some of the key things, and then it really starts to open up. I'm lost for words, to be honest. It's just such a fun game, and for someone like me that's quite a casual gamer, so I won't play for more than an hour at a time, like once every 2 weeks or so. So it's the kind of game I can go in and I can literally be done in like 20 minutes if I want, or I can just do an hour just exploring and like foraging and stuff like that. So it's such a cool game, action packed, got kind of an RPG element to it as well. So yeah, I really enjoy it. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been watching and playing.
Nice. Yeah, I've always tried to get into the Monster Hunter World game, but not quite. I was just do the character creation,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, I've played for 3 hours at this point.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? That's the thing. It really does kind of like suck you in. I find most character creations though, like I'm there for so long.
Yeah, especially as they start to get more detailed.
Yeah. Have you done like Starfield?
No.
Yeah, that one's really detailed. My goodness. Yeah, that's an hour, and then you get into the game, and then there's like cutscenes, and you're like, oh, okay.
Cool. I guess it's my turn. It's the last one of the year, so I don't want to miss anything. So I will start with game. I started playing The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, and so I'm really enjoying it. I'll probably bring it up again like once I'm further through in the once we start up again for the new season. But yeah, it's really fun. It's really refreshing because it has a lot of like, it feels like playing a older Zelda game for the first time. Sort of like picking up like Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, or like sort of that sort of era of games, but like fresh. Because I feel like I've just been really overwhelmed with like the Breath of the Wild series of it just being big and open world, and I'm like, I just want the Legend of Zelda. I understand like needing to add new things, but it needs to feel like the Legend of Zelda. And this feels like a Legend of Zelda game used to feel, but with new things in it, new mechanics. And it's the one game where you're actually playing as Zelda.
It's the first game,
The meme has been fulfilled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it. And it's like very, very cute. It's absolutely adorable. I will then talk about films before we go into my list of anime. So I've started on the Christmas films, and I watched Nutcrackers, which is with Ben Stiller, and so it's funny. It's very like weird, like it's a I love it because it's like this dysfunctional family dynamic, and I just love that about it. It's not a clean Christmas movie. It's not a Hallmark, everything is perfect the whole way through. It's very raw. So it's quite a fun one if you're fed up of like that same sort of like Christmas story, then and you want a different one. I definitely recommend the Nutcrackers. And then I watched Holiday in Handcuffs, which
that's a title.
It's a weird film. But I was just on Disney Plus. I was like, I want to watch a Christmas rom-com that I've not watched before. And this came up, and it's with Melissa Joan Hart, the actress that played
Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
The Teenage Witch, yes. Which was really off-putting because at first I was like, where do I know this person from? It's weird. The description is a struggling artist working as a waitress kidnaps one of her customers to take her home to meet her parents at Christmas. I'm like, what? It's a film about kidnapping, and they've made it into this like Christmas film where everything's all happy. It's so weird. It's such a wild ride to watch because you're like, this is like, it doesn't fit. It's not adding up. It feels like a Christmas film, but the things that are happening are not like, but it's, I don't know. Just if you're looking for a questionable, weird Christmas film, honestly, it's so weird. Anyway, that's my normal things I'm watching. List of anime. I watched Gosick, which is like this, what's the word? Gothic mystery. Really, really gothic mystery romance, I would call it. Oh. It's really fun. It's like about these two kids who are like the odd ones out, and they find each other and develop this wonderful friendship. But there's lots of like mysterious puzzles in it, and it's fun to see them unravel. And then the rest kind of just describe themselves, so I'm just going to list them off. I watched, and I think they're mostly isekais.
We'll know from the titles.
Yeah. So I'm a spider, so what? In another world with my smartphone, parallel world pharmacy, drugstore in another world, which it says it's an isekai, but there's not much isekai about it. It might as well just be about a drugstore in a fantasy world. The character apparently used to live in another, but anyway. If it's for my daughter, I'd even defeat the Demon Lord. That one's not an isekai. And Kakurio, Bed and Breakfast of the Spirits, which is, it's so good. I want to watch it again. Yeah. Oh,
He's
great. Yeah. They're great, fun stories. I will say Drugstore in Another World, like, gets very technical. Oh, no, not Drugstore in Another World. Parallel World Pharmacy gets very technical. Drugstore in Another World is the opposite. It does not get technical. There's a really fun little dance sequence that happens every time a medicine is made. Yeah, and then in Another World with my smartphone is the typical guy.
That sounds like this world.
Surrounded by girls, but he has a smartphone and no one knows what it is. But God is very interesting in that.
God is no one knows what a smartphone is.
No, because he's in another world.
Because he's in okay.
And in that world, smartphones don't exist. It's really clever. Like, his reincarnation is clever. I like it. And so What I'm a Spider is epic. I'm just getting to the twists and turns, but it's a very fun journey. They're all very fun journeys. Would recommend all of them. Nigel, what are your recent watches?
So I have to save the animes for the wrap to go. I've got some, well, nothing I've started new, but mine are all non-anime. So one I forgot to mention on a past episode, I'm just going to put this in there, Joker, Folie à Deux. I think that's how you pronounce that. Boy.
I didn't realize it was out. Do you know that? That's so funny.
Yeah, well, that's a rough watch. That is, I don't think I've, how to say
this 32% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen a film have such a high from the first and then the gap to the second. I just got whiplash from that. Yeah, that's I don't know what happened. I
predicted it.
I take it you haven't done an episode on this yet.
No, we don't need to. We don't. We did Borderlands. We don't need. We don't need to go.
Maybe if we need to fill the Joker space next year. The Joker's quite literally the Joker card.
It is. It is. It's just. Well, I'm not sure what happened. I think I said this on our WhatsApp chat ladder. If it wasn't a Joker film, then fine, you can have there's a conversation to be had. It's interesting, but as a sequel to that Joker film, it almost feels like, I mean, I don't know if you've both seen all the recent Star Wars trilogies, but the distance between The Last Jedi and Rise of the Skywalker, because there were two different directors, and it was like one director trying to undo what the previous one did. This feels like that, but it's the same guy, and it just feels like he's trying to undo what he did in the first one. So
Was it a protest film? I don't understand.
It feels like he's like just protesting whatever either what was said through the characters in the story or what it became, and just trying to that's what it felt like. I don't know the whole story.
I'm very excited to watch it. This sounds anti. This doesn't sound right, but I'm very excited to watch it because I like to watch the flop, if that makes sense. to just be able to say, I told you so. Like, I just want that satisfying feeling. Because from the moment it was announced that there was going to be a second Joker film, I was like, we do not need it. There is no universe that film needed a sequel. Even when it came out, I was like, this should never get a sequel. Like the first Joker, I was like, this is a perfect piece.
Brilliant
in itself. And then as the information about it came out, I was like, I love musicals. I'd be very excited, but I just do not think it's going to do. I don't think they're going to do.
It's not even a musical. It's yeah, yeah. The music. It's like a musical that doesn't like musicals. It's a weird. It's not bad like because Borderlands is like a bad. I mentioned Borderlands. That's bad. This is a. I don't know if it's bad. It's just
It wasn't the
for a
Joker.
sequel
It'd be a good film.
Well, I don't know about good. It'd be debatable. Some might say it's like great. Some might say it's
film.
yeah. But as a sequel to that film, yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it works. Speaking of things that maybe didn't need a sequel, I also saw Gladiator 2.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I saw this with a mutual friend, Lao. I went to see this with our friend Jabril. By the way, did you know he has a rule? He doesn't see films that are under 7 in IMDb.
Yeah.
Oh, you knew that? Okay,
I'm aware of this.
Okay, because there was a point about like 2 hours before we were going to see it where I wasn't sure if we were going to see it because it got a 6.9 on IMDb, but we went to see it. It's a shame. I'm going to say it's a shame because it's not a bad film. I had fun with it, but I acknowledge it wasn't great and it wasn't a patch on the original. And it's weird because it seemed to go out of its way to remind you of the original, but the original is just far superior. It's got just more emotion, like narrative depth to it, and this film felt like almost like a photocopy of a photocopy type.
Oh man,
film. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. I don't think it's a bad film by any measure. It's just for that Gladiator film. If you're gonna do a sequel, we need to because so it's one of those.
This reminds me of like when you have like a superstar, like pop star singer, whatever, and then they're in their twilight years and they just kind of come out and just do a few numbers. It's like, just give me my check. And it's not bad. It's not, no, everyone says that,
it's definitely not bad. Yeah.
They've still got the pipes, but it's not them in their heyday. Like, that's the vibe I'm getting.
Like. That's quite sad, but that is what it felt like.
Oh man,
a little bit. But I enjoyed it. I think you can watch it and you can enjoy what it is.
I have a confession to make. I've never watched Gladiator.
Damn, that's you're the second person, another mutual friend who's not seen
so
Gladiator. Gladiator is a very good film. Don't go and see it for historical accuracy, but it's a very good film.
That's true.
But yeah, the second one. And also, Denzel is great in it, but Denzel's Denzel. Like,
when's Denzel not great?
No, Denzel, yeah. There's that. And he's fun to watch in that. Cool. So, all right, that's the two maybe have issues with. Let me get to the other side. Great one. Started watching Arcane season 1. Oh, sorry, rewatching Arcane season 1 so I can prepare myself for Arcane season 2, which I started. No notes. No notes so far. It's just so they know what they're doing. Yeah, season 1, rewatching that gave me sort of new perspective. I don't always rewatch things, but it's Arcane, so yeah, I'm going back in. And I've watched 3 episodes. I watched 3 episodes of season 2. Boy, the episode 1 starts like the end of a season in that. Boy, that does not give it, gives you a bit of breath and and you're back in that, and I can already see from where it's going just emotionally. There's some stuff to be settled.
I'm so glad I'm waiting because I don't want to be in the like I've just been really tired recently and I need to be fully aware and alert watching it, which is why I haven't started, because I'm like I need to actually watch this.
You need to engage with this story. Yeah. I'm liking the way they're, obviously no spoilers, but I'm liking the way they're developing some of the characters. I will just say, like, I'm surprised at how, and I've only seen 3 episodes so far, but I'm surprised at how impressed I have been with Caitlyn's character progression and how much, I think it's going to change, but how much it's resonated with me. Because when she was first introduced, I saw her as like a not that big of a character and just her personality, but she changed. And anyway, let me know. I'm sure we'll come back to Arcane. Obviously, goes without saying we're going to do an episode on that next season because just need to get all this out. But let me move on. Last one is The Wild Robot. I don't know if either of you have seen this.
No.
No, but I really want to see it after like seeing the trailer in the cinema a while back. It looks so
Yeah,
good.
this is I would say this is a special film. This is speaking of emotion. So I was aware of, I think I saw a trailer when I went to see another film, but it wasn't on my radar. And I don't even think I was gonna see it, but then I started seeing some like reviews and just like it's amazing and da, da, da. And I've got a Cineworld card, so sometimes I'll just go to the cinema and just check out stuff. So went to see this, wasn't expecting much, and it starts, yeah, cool, I get where the story's going, and then the emotions hit. This is high emotion, and I was like, this is great. I mean, visually, it's fantastic. It's a great animation. It doesn't just do the Disney Pixar thing. It's got its own style. Love that. Yeah, just the emotion of like seeing this robot is the wild robot. So it's about a robot and sort of surviving in the wild and making connections. And I'll leave it at that. But there's just emotion. It's just this is an emotional ride, and it's just fantastic. I highly encourage just anyone who's into, if you're into animation, go see it. If you're just into emotional stories, it will leave you. It left me just feeling more positive than when I went in. Not that I was necessarily in a bad state or anything, but just just lift you up. If you need it's tough times. If you just need something, just positivity, go see this film. So
I like films like that. They kind of have an imprint on you.
yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to actually buy this like physically, like media. So I just got this to come back to. I think this is gonna have to be a come back to film.
Wow, that's high
In that
praise.
sense. Yeah, very impressed. All right, there we go. Those are some of the things we've been enjoying. Or now let's get into our main story discussion. Today, for episode 200, did we mention it's episode 200? We are going to be talking about Blue Giant, a 2023 anime film from the Japanese animation studio Nut, directed by Yuzuru Takikawa and based on a screenplay by Number 8 with music composed by Hiromi. The Japanese voice cast, because there's no English cast, includes Yuki Yamada, Taro Mamiya, Amine Yokama, and more. So, we're going to do a whole spoiler thing because this is that part of the show. I will sort of do a recap. So, I had a bit of problems like putting together a recap of the anime. So, this is based on a manga. So, I'll kind of recap, broadly speaking, the manga because it kind of tracks for the most part. But yeah, I had troubles getting together a recap. But before we get to that, let's get everyone's quick takes and general impressions, starting with our guest, Lao. What did you think about this story?
I wasn't sure what to expect going in. Now that I finished it, I couldn't help but wonder, Nigel, what exactly are you trying to do to us, making us watch this? It was so emotionally charged. I don't know, maybe because I play any musical instrument, I like music, but this film absolutely wrecked me at points, like in just all sorts of ways. Like I was so moved by this film, and that is a testament to the musicians, the animators, the script writers, the way they've woven this thing together. Like, as someone that just likes music, I was in the music, firing on all cylinders. So that I was really impressed with this. It's probably one of my favorite films, I'd say, at least of recent time.
All right, Tazziii, what did you think about this?
I am not a musical person. I admire people who are. But there was I have to agree, there's a lot of emotion in this. There was bits where I was like, I think like more near the beginning, where I was like, wait, is he good at playing the saxophone? I don't genuinely, I don't know. I'm trying to gauge how people are reacting because I think he's playing well as far as I know. But I'm trying to gauge because everyone has this emotion towards it.
Yeah.
That is wait, are they
special?
Are they happy or sad? But they're just so overwhelmed by emotion, right? And I thought it done such a great job of visualizing the spiritual effect of music on people's souls.
That's a really good way of putting it.
That's what I would say. There's some real scenes there where there's like music being played and there's like flashbacks and color, and like you're almost taken on like this metaphysical journey through like the minds of the musicians and the listeners. Like I feel like it really encapsulated that, like that moment of when you hear music that really touches your soul and you're kind of like transported outside of your body. It made that visually happen, and I thought that was really impressive. That's like the thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, no, it's a really good. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. That I agree, and I also, especially the first performance, I was like, is he good? I don't know. I can't quite tell. I kind of like it, but I don't know. So I felt that as well. So as to why I would do this to you, the first thing is because I caught the trailer. So I'd never heard of I'd never come across the original, the source material. Didn't know it. Just caught the trailer somehow and looked interesting. My first thought is like, oh, we did Whiplash, so this seems like it makes sense. In fact, that was all the thought that went into it, actually. And then we may as well get Lao back on because you were on that episode, and you also play an instrument. Do you still play?
Do you know, I haven't played in a long time.
Okay, all right.
But I'm inspired to pick up the guitar again because of this and other things.
Okay, so once upon a time, Lao played, so like, okay, that makes you the de facto expert on whether someone might be good or not. And that was all my expectations, really. I didn't know what to expect beyond that. Yeah, this definitely moved me. This moved me. I think this moved me from a perspective of what Tazziii was saying in terms of representation of the music, how that was done, like visually and obviously like through sound, but just the journey of these three like main characters. It made me feel the same way, and I don't know if I think I can't remember. In fact, I can't remember if either of you seen it. I don't know if Tazziii and I have had this conversation. I have no idea if Lau's seen it, but there's a film called Joy. Have we had that conversation, Tazziii?
Is this
have you seen it?
Is this with what's her name?
Yes, because you made me watch it.
Yes, yes, because I said yes. You have to. Yeah.
Yo, you kind of did. You kind of did.
I did say yeah. You have because it's an entrepreneur film, and that's how it was pitched to me. So Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper, and Jennifer Lawrence is like it's based on the true story of oh, now I'm gonna sort of butcher it, but the sales. Well, she's not even a sales lady, but she invents something and ends up on QVC or whatever the equivalent is in this, and she becomes a whole kind of thing. She blows up. So it's a whole journey, because before that she's like struggling and she's this real person and having family issues and just like going through it, and then she makes this break. And so it's a real like just entrepreneur story. And this is not the same story, so Blue Giant isn't the same story, but I felt the same in terms of that journey, that struggle, and having that goal to something. And I felt it felt like such a pure like distillation of that, just that entrepreneurial journey. And obviously I'm projecting somewhat on that, but just seeing those characters and seeing the differences in the characters, which we'll get into, I was so like just caught up in this film, and I feel this needs to be another film that I just need to maybe let's get and just rewatch it to remind myself of the joys of that journey. And there's just lots of lessons I feel in there, which I'm probably gonna surely bring up over the course of this podcast. So I thought it was great, and just such an interesting way to portray not only jazz but the journey. And like I said, in comparison with like Whiplash, it takes a completely different tone, which I quite like. I mean, I really like Whiplash as well, but this takes a completely different tone when answering that question of the pursuit of success and greatness. So yeah, really impressed by it. So yeah, like I said, I'll recap sort of, it's based on a manga, so I'll try and recap there. Apologies if I mentioned things that maybe were in the manga but not in the film, but let's see how this goes. So Blue Giant is a story that centers around Dai Miyamoto, and his life changes forever when he discovers jazz. So he doesn't have any musical training, but he takes up tenor saxophone and practices relentlessly. And even though he just doesn't have the technical sort of side of it, he's just relentless in that sense. So he's driven by the determination to become one of the greatest jazz musicians of all time. He leaves his hometown of Sendai for Tokyo's competitive music scene. So though initially struggling, his unwavering passion attracts two crucial allies, a talented but cocky pianist Yukinori and aspiring drummer Shunji. Together, they form a jazz trio whose rough but energetic sound begins turning heads in Tokyo's nightclub scene. But as Dai pursues his dream with reckless sincerity, he has to confront the true meaning of greatness in unforgiving world of professional jazz. So that's the kind of overview. But then there's a bit more detail in terms of like the story. So we see Dai. Like I said, he becomes just so enthused with jazz despite his lack of technical knowledge. And the turning point where it comes where he meets Yukinori Sawabe, who is a university student and a skilled pianist. Though he's initially dismissive of Dai's kind of amateurish playing, Yukinori recognizes the raw talent and agrees to, in a sense, mentor him. And I wonder how that's different in the comic versus the film, but on the music theory side. So Dai's first performance, although it's unpolished, it leaves a lasting impression and really cements his desire to pursue jazz professionally. And that is, where he submerses himself in Tokyo's vibrant jazz scene. And in Tokyo, he faces competition. He eventually forms a jazz trio with Yukinori and Shunji Tamada, who is a drummer, who is brand new. And again, one of the differences between the manga and the anime, but in an anime, he's basically just learning from nothing, and we see that. So despite their conflicting personalities, they all share a love for jazz, and that's what unites them. They do face criticism as they perform in different places, and their breakthrough comes during a high-stakes performance where the trio's chemistry finally clicks and resonates deeply with the audience and opens doors to greater opportunities in Tokyo's jazz circuit. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So the anime takes because there's different volumes. So the first 10 volumes of Blue Giant, and then there's another 10 after the events of this film. So I tried to piece together a broad summary there. I should also say a big thank you to the folks at alltheanime.com who gifted us copies of Blue Giant specifically for this episode. So thank you to them. They will be releasing the film on collector's edition Blu-ray in 2025. I feel I need to keep an eye out for that because, like I said, I might need to revisit this film every so often. So yeah, that is the story, broadly speaking. We'll get into it. So we all watch the subtitled and, like I mentioned, the Japanese voice actors, because this was distributed in North America by G Kids Films and had like a limited release in the West. Like I said, I saw a trailer and I think it was out in the cinemas in the UK. So it was released 31st January this year, 2024, in the UK and Irish cinemas. And then it just went. Like, I didn't just get a chance to see it. And I don't know if, before I mentioned it for this episode, had either of you even heard of this release?
I feel like I briefly saw something about it, like very briefly.
Yeah.
No, nothing for me.
Yeah, it's weird. It just came and went. I know we've mentioned this before about things not staying in the cinema for long, but it's just like if it was 2 weeks, I'd be surprised. It was so quickly, and I was just wondering why that was, and I wonder if, because this is such a, I've got in my notes sort of quote unquote normal animes. Like often anime gets that reputation of being just weird and wacky and unsuitable, always not always suitable for kids. But here there's like, there's no superpowered beings fighting each other. They don't get transported to weird worlds. It's just all very normal and restrained. And I wonder if that's why. Does it not fit what is our Western stereotype of what an anime should be, or who the anime audience is? I wonder why this didn't get any more attention here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's funny though, having seen it, I'm pretty confident I could use this as a gateway film into the world of anime with a lot of people. So it's strange. Maybe the powers that be deemed it not necessarily one that would land on the first kind of sight.
Yeah, because I feel like here we feel anime is for kids. Although this is not like a, I was going to say it's not for kids. Not that it can't be watched by kids because there's nothing necessarily in it that's unsuitable. Maybe a few like crude jokes at the beginning, but it's just not specifically for kids. So then if it doesn't fit that like perception of who the anime audience is in this part of the world, then I guess it wouldn't take up. But yeah, like you say, it could be a great gateway to just the medium because it's just normal. It's just it's just normal. So yeah, I was curious about that. I'm interested. Either of you, I think Tazziii kind of mentioned a little bit in terms of not quite knowing like is this good or not. I don't know about you, Lao, but are either of you like fans of jazz in particular?
Look, I'm just gonna say yes. I like jazz. I don't seek out jazz all that often, but I think I do get my jazz fix via my copious consumption of lo-fi, because a lot of lo-fi
Fair.
beats are actually jazz and just sort of been remixed with a beat. So yeah.
And for you, Tazzy?
Not, I wouldn't say I have a thing where I don't understand music genres. So, no, I wouldn't say. Though there has been a few times where like jazz is really good for listening to in the bath, and I've like gone out my way to put a jazz playlist on for sitting in the bath. But other than, I think I've been to like a jazz bar once, and it was very overstimulating, to be fair.
Oh, really?
But maybe that was I need to find like the right
one,
jazz
yeah.
bar. And I've watched films that are about jazz. That's how I
Yeah, that counts.
or like just I know jazz through other media.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I'm just wanted to get where everyone is because I kind of am. I went through a phase. This was pre-pandemic where I listened to a lot of jazz, like specifically piano jazz and certain artists around there and just in other forms. And then I sort of tailed off, not for any particular reason. So this is a nice refresher. And I do remember when, so a very long time ago, me and Lao went to Japan, although you went to Japan like last month or something. And we went, do you remember we went to the Yuji Ono?
How can I forget?
Yeah. So it's reminded me of that when we stood there not taking any photos because we were scarred from Tokyo Game Show and they told us not to take photos and we were like, can we take photos? And then I don't know if you remember, we saw this one lady, Japanese lady, take photos and we're like, oh, we can take photos. Let's take some photos. So this had flashbacks of that. But yeah, no, I just wanted to like say just to see where everyone's coming at this from, but also in terms of making the story, because the director Yuzuru Takikawa is also not necessarily, by their own words, not a jazz aficionado, but he said, this is in an interview with Anime News Network, that and I knew about the Blue Giant manga, but I hadn't really sat down to read it all. A producer from Toho actually approached me with the idea of making it into a feature animation, and that was the first time I actually read Blue Giant. I really fell in love with the themes, and that's how I ended up directing it. So it's just interesting to see that or read that, because this conversation comes up in, I don't know, like comic books or video games, like, oh, there must be an expert, and yeah, obviously that we've had this discussion, there needs to be respect, and I feel like in this film there's a healthy respect for not just the story, the medium, for jazz and the way it's approached, but by his own words, he's not a jazz aficionado. So that's just like cool to see how you can not be an expert but still make something that I feel is just a great piece of work. And then speaking, the music is really what like carries this. The film soundtrack was composed by Japanese pianist Hiromi, who won a Grammy Award in 2011, and she performs alongside tenor saxophonist Tomaki Baba and drummer Shun Ishwaka. So the people playing are like real musicians. Obviously, you just need to listen to it to tell, but it's just cool. They've taken it to that level. And this film also won the award for Best Music at the 47th Japanese Academy Film Prize ceremony this year, March 8th, 2024. So yeah, just wanted to give some like context into how this sort of came about, all of the thinking around it. It's just always fascinating to see that. So as for the story itself, and we can get into that, what struck me about this is that you could almost say that this is a sports drama in jazz clothing. I don't know how you both feel about that. Did that stand out to you? But you've got,
yes.
yeah.
As I was watching it, I was like, I came up with this way to describe what anime is. You know, when people are like, what makes anime so different and great compared to like Western media? And I realized from watching this, because I was thinking of sports anime as I was watching some of these scenes, was that anime does this thing of making something that's like just everyday normal, like a dramatic telling of that thing in a way that portrays the passion of the people that do that thing.
I agree with that.
But yeah, I definitely, when I was watching, I was like, sports anime is what came into my head straight away.
Yeah, it's definitely got all the beats and tenets of the classic sports anime, and you definitely can't have a sports anime without the kind of training section.
Yeah, of course.
Where they've got to kind of just grind it out for a bit.
Yeah, you've got a person with raw talent comes into a new place, but it's harder than he expected because he's not in his small hometown. And then for them, in the sports genre, you get like the big game, like whatever the championship, we got to make that and perform there. So here it's playing at that,
and someone gets injured,
and someone gets injured. Yeah. So yeah, you got all that, and like, so the jazz club Soul Blue is their sports championship. Was there a moment, and we can sort of step through the journey, but was there a moment on the journey that stood out to either of you in particular?
I mean, for me, it basically, there's a kind of a pivotal moment in the middle where they all kind of gather, and what's his name? I'm gonna get his name wrong. Sorry, I'm terrible with the names.
Yukinori.
Yes, Yukinori. Basically, Yukinori has hit a wall, and they almost have like this little powwow, this meeting, and it's pretty obvious that he has to go, basically, because he's not good enough, and he knows it. And
oh wait, no, you mean Tamada, the drummer?
No, Yukinori, because he.
Oh, this is
later. Oh, sorry, it is later on. Yeah. Maybe it's not in the middle. So maybe the last third. But that kind of stands out to me. It's a very powerful scene. It kind of shows, in my view, I could be wrong, but I get the sense of a very kind of Japanese way, if you know what I mean, of approaching that sort of situation. And Dai kind of typified it by his response to sort of let Yukinori leave because he's not good enough, because he's on a mission. And what I thought was really cool about the differences in all the characters is Tamada is torn because this conflict of Dai pursuing his dream and Yukinori realizing he's not good enough where he is right now meant that Tamada would not have his friendship with the two of them because the band is effectively going to split. And then you have that conflict, that clash, and everyone's like, responding in their own ways, and Tamada's emotional, and it's just mad. So I thought it was a very important scene, and it kind of presented this sense of, this is a story where there's not going to be easy answers, and we're going to just see what happens, basically. And I like that when a story does that, because then you're like, okay, let's see where they go from here.
Are you talking about the moment where it wasn't that he left, he like stepped away?
Well,
because he wasn't improvising enough. He was. Yeah. Was it that bit? Because there's a bit where he actually leaves right at the end, and then there's a bit where he steps away in the middle.
Yeah. So it's basically that point. Yeah, that's the bit I'm talking about.
Where he steps away in the middle.
I mean, I took that as a complete leaving, to be honest.
No, because he even says he's like got to grow. It's not like a forever bit then.
Well, yeah.
He does it. He says it as not a forever bit.
Yeah.
He literally says he'll be back. He's like, I've got to go. Like, he says something about like needing to work on this thing, and it not being but he'll be back.
Yeah, I do remember that, actually. It's just interesting how everyone sort of treated that, because Dai was cool. We was like, well, I've got to press ahead.
Yeah.
He was also like, he's got to sort his own stuff out.
Basically, yeah. And it wasn't out of a looking down on him perspective. It was almost like, this is the way. if you know what I mean, to quote the
Yeah.
Mandalorian. Yeah, we're gonna crack on, and yeah, and Tamada was not ready to kind of have that difference.
That would probably be, that was like one of the moments in my head that I was tossing up with. But the other one was when Tamada, I think it's when he comes back after his first time playing the drums.
Where they tell him you can't be in, well, one specifically tells him you can't be in this band.
Yeah, but then when he comes back, and I think there's like, because there's a moment that first time and you see him like, no, I want to be here.
Yeah.
And then when he comes back and he's done like some kiddies lessons, oh bless him, he's so sweet. And he plays, and it was like, he still wasn't good. He still was just a complete amateur, but he was
better.
He was better, and he had that raw passion. And that actually also reminded me of Whiplash, funnily enough. Like, I thought of Whiplash because he had all like the cuts and stuff in his hand, and you could see he had that level of like determination of like, I will earn my place here, and like, am I getting better? Like his continuous drive to grow.
Yeah, because even like Jass Yukinori is like, or he's told like, you made this many mistakes.
This many
like,
mistakes.
how many mistakes did I make this time? It's like, oh, it was less, but still about a whole bunch.
Yeah, and how everyone else like saw the like the passion in him, rather than like it being all about technique. It was the like, again, it was about him, like, to his soul being there. Because the other moment was when Tamada's on the phone to his mum. Was it his mum or his nan?
I think it was his mum, you know.
And he says, I've just got to do this. I know if I don't do this now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. That hit me.
Yeah, yeah, that was a moment. That was a moment. I felt that. Definitely felt that. And I feel there's just so many moments on this. Like one small one, which has just resonated with just tough, when they were handing out flyers for their first big, or to them that was their first big performance. And then Dai asked one of the people he hands it out, like, what's the chances of you coming? And he's like, 10%. And Dai's like, cool, see you there.
He's like, I'll give 110. No, 120%.
Yeah.
That was funny. And it resonated because I've also given out flyers into events, and in my heart, even though it's something you kind of have to do, I'm always in the back of my mind just like, only 10%, and I've said literally only 10% of people, if that, are going to come. And in some ways it's dispiriting, because most people, what you want is a one-to-one, like, you have handed you flyer, you're going to come. That just doesn't happen. So when he shows like a positive response at 10%, it's quite like, oh, okay, yeah, you gotta, yeah, because 10% are going to come. You might, it's not zero, so gotta give your best. So I did appreciate that. And so like I said, like the whole sports journey, so we get just like running through these sort of beats, you get like protagonists with the raw talent. So check, we got Dai, no training, just started this thing, comes to Tokyo and just playing. He gets a setback. What's funny is that he arrives in Tokyo and he doesn't even have a place to stay, so he's just gone on a whim. And he has this great line when so Tamada is like an old friend who he hasn't seen in ages, and he turns up. He's like, can I stay here? And then I think Tamada's like, why didn't you ask me on the phone? And he's like, because you might have said no. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta, I think Tazziii, you mentioned this, to ask forgiveness and not, what's the...
Ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
That's, yeah. I thought, you know what? Yeah, sometimes you just, that's what you gotta do. Like, I'm doing this thing and you might have said no. You can't say it now, I'm here. So he stays with him. I just like that whole journey that he takes, because they have the sort of not necessarily conflict, but he's like, oh, because he's just crashing for a little while, and then a little while turns into a long while. But then you see him taking jobs so he can pay rent, and he's like, okay, I'll let you stay for a little bit. So I did quite like that journey, that mini journey. And then so setbacks, finding a mentor or teacher. I guess that's Yokinori. But then I got the impression that in the manga, maybe that relationship is a little bit different, or there's more space for that to breathe. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a mentor. I'd say teacher, because he does, Yokinori is like the technical ability, and he teachers. So I guess he does feel that. Lao, you said we get the training montages, we see them, the skills development. We don't necessarily get a 1-for-1 rivalry with more established performers, but we do get just the rivalry with just Jass and just people telling them literally no, this thing you want is crazy. So you get that. But as they go, they build that team dynamic, that group dynamic. One of my, showing some age, but the Mighty Ducks is in my mind, in my heart, is when I think sports drama, that's one of the things that always comes up. That's just at a young age that just touched me, and I always remember the team bonding that was in that, and then the big competition as the climax. So yeah, it's like a sports drama, but it's in that jazz aesthetic, which is really cool. And then I was also thinking, do you have to enjoy jazz to get this journey's meaning? Do you think the journey comes through regardless of whether you've listened to jazz before watching this or not?
I think they just do they've done such a great job of communicating the journey visually and in the storytelling. Just like with sports anime, you don't have to know a thing about it, but you're gonna want to after you've watched it. You're
yeah.
Which is what sports anime always has the effect. I'm always now I've got to get into this sport.
Yeah, because I want that feeling. I want that journey.
Yeah. So no, I don't think you need to know anything about the only people that will to get to grips with the journey are those that are purposely preventing themselves from it, that are stubbornly and adamantly being I can't get anything from it. Yeah, that they're well, at least try and understand you're not gonna. Though I feel this might even move some of those people, because it is just the visuals, man, that get me wow.
Yeah, and Lao, as someone who, again, once upon a time plays instrument, you played in some kind of band setting, because you mentioned this could be a gateway thing. Is this something that, I don't know, have you ever had that resistance from people I'm not into music or into this particular kind of music? Would this be something you feel, that person could enjoy?
I think if you don't like jazz, I think that'd probably be the only issue. But I mean, if you like music, or if you're a musician, I think this is a good one to kind of just watch and enjoy. And I think you can easily kind of get into it, because most people, especially those who've played an instrument, even if they're not maestro or anything, which I'm not, by the way. Go figure. You can at least appreciate the journey, because anyone that's tried to learn an instrument knows that it's no walk in the park. So you almost watch this and really respect all of the characters for different reasons. And I think it would be reasonably easy to get into this film. I think you kind of touched on a really interesting point. You called this normal, if I remember. As far as anime goes, and I think that's
very
another
normal.
big draw, because it's there's no dragon's hair, there's no portals, there's none of that. This is just people in real settings going through, honestly, quite a real experience. Obviously it's not a common experience. Not everyone's trying to become a great whatever, but most people are trying to achieve something, and most people have to kind of work with others to get there. So I think on that level, it's very accessible, and I reckon most people would be able to get into this if they give it a chance. Like I said, if you're, I don't like jazz, don't want to listen to this or watch this, then yeah, fair enough. You're probably not gonna get much out of it, but I think I think it's pretty accessible.
Yeah, and the way it was framed also, because, and I didn't know this because I didn't know much about this going into it, but there were bits where people were on record talking about something, and then after sort of a moment I clocked that they're the older versions talk about the past selves, so this is a documentary thing being filmed. And so again, the director from this interview with Anime News Network saying that these documentary style parts, because in the original manga the story hasn't finished yet, but there's an assumption that Dai has become the world's best jazz player, and that's why the documentary is being shot. So again, it's that the source material isn't quite finished, but we're making this animated version. So here's how we're gonna excuse the fact that it's not finished. So we just make that assumption because I guess that is where it's going. But then yeah, that was just the format. And as I also write sort of against all odds, where it's not this, but the idea of most of the film is technically in the past, and you've got a few bits that are current, which is the documentary, and what we are taking as the main beats of the story by this film's presentation are all in the past, and that's kind of the same way that I've written that story. So that was cool to see, like a different way to take on that format. So yeah, and then we get and the other thing I really appreciated about this is like it's slow, and I don't mean that in a negative way, just that slow developed relationship. It's just these three, it's about them and their journey and what that means for success. And we've mentioned Whiplash. Obviously, that's kind of part of the reason why I thought this could be a good counter to that. But it also, I feel, says something about the perception of success or the pursuit of success here in the West versus maybe the East. So there's kind of two ways I want to take this. Is that overriding question, but also through these three characters, we get a journey of success, but taking from different perspectives. So we get the natural gift. So he just got it. He just started, but he's got something. The technical talent, like my family's, I come from musicians. This is what I was meant to do. I know all the technical side, but improvisation, maybe not so. And hard work. Like I don't have it, and I'm gonna work so hard to get it. And I really appreciate that. I don't know for you both, like, did those three characters impact at all, like your view on what success means, or how did you view that relationship between the three?
This is going to sound weird because obviously success is a big theme in this, but I didn't even think about success, really. I feel like there was just such a heavy focus on like the journey and the like the value, like the core value of them, rather than
the destination.
Yeah, it was like who they are as people and how they overcome obstacles, rather than like them achieving an end goal, if that makes sense. Even though it was like so pointed out in so many places. I'm like, yeah, okay. I feel like, because I feel like I clocked really early they were talking about Dai being successful, that I was like, okay, so he's successful.
He's done it. Yeah.
He's done it. This is really about like who are they as people? How do they impact each other? And like how does that like affect how they're interacting and overcoming like these challenges?
Yeah, and very much so. I can't even, when we get to themes, I think if I didn't put it in there, shame on me. But yeah, that's one of the things I took away from this, that it was such a focus on just enjoying the moment and being the best in the moment. And one of the things that stood out to me along those lines is where you'd see Dai just play under the bridge or by the bridge, and there's no one around him. He's just playing because he just enjoys that, and he's just the best I can do in that moment. And that's such a like good lesson to take away. So it almost is that. I feel it's almost saying like any success is the enjoyment of it in that moment. That is it, and that will take you where you need to go almost. But I don't know what you think now.
Yeah, I think that there's three stories here, three lessons. Actually, on the previous point, I'll just say it reminded me the name of a book which I've never read, but it has a very kind of impactful title, and it's called "The Obstacle Is the Way" by someone called Ryan Holiday.
Ryan Holiday.
Yeah, The Timeless Art of Turning Trials into Triumph. So it reminded me of that, even though I've never read the book. But I think for each character, there's definitely like a little lesson just behind their approach. And I think, say for Yukinori, it's that you do need to have some training. You do need to have some fundamentals. Like that was kind of his thing. He was all about. I've worked very hard to be competent in this, but then of course he had to go beyond that. And then for Tamada, it was this sense of, I'm not very good, but I've got this drive and desire. So you've kind of got this passion and burning desire to be more than what you are. And then with Dai, this was kind of just that pure, raw, like, yeah, I guess it's the joy of it. You kind of touched on it, right? You're doing it because you love it. You're doing it because this is kind of like who you are. And I think there's something that we can kind of take from each character in that respect. And I thought that was quite impactful, that you kind of see those things. Naturally, I think everyone's going to lean to one character more than the others. But I liked seeing that play out. And who knows, maybe people that are kind of going on their own sort of journey will experience a bit of all three.
Yeah. And I think it's important that you have the three. I feel that's really good. I mean, it's good for the film, but it's good for the message as well, that those three are there. And just to do a sort of full circle thing on the reference to the obstacles away, because Ryan Holiday is like I feel like he's sort of blown up recently, although he's always big, but he writes about like Stoic philosophy, and Marcus Aurelius is where that quote comes from. So he has a quote in his meditations book that is I don't know if this is the full quote, probably not, because there's a lot more to the book, but it's the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So it's the idea that the thing you think is standing in your way is actually what you need to go through to go further. And then Marcus Aurelius is also I don't think he's quite depicted in Gladiator 2, but that character. So there's relationships there. So just pointing that out because it connects a few dots there. But so like I said, I think it's important to have the three and what it says. And like I feel sort of Whiplash will surely definitely come up more times, like right here, because it does say something about different ways you can approach. When I say success, not even necessarily as a destination, but just as a just general concept. Because when we did the episode of Whiplash, we also saw a young jazz musician who has the goal, wants to be the best, but then the tone takes a turn, because Whiplash is about a very antagonistic student-teacher relationship. And we see, we talked about Fletcher being an abuser, essentially, whereas Dai, who almost becomes, in a way, he becomes the mentor for the others, but he's just so supportive. He, in a way, reminds me of Luffy. Even when, because Yokinori and Dai, they form a two, and they're like, okay, we need a drummer because the idea is like, because Dai is so raw, he's like, we need to rein you in, so we need a drummer to like set those beats. And then like the next day or whatever, he brings in Tadame, just like some guy, basically, to as far as Yokinori's concerned, just some guy you just met. But Dai's like, no, he can do it. This is the team. He's on the team. He can do it. I feel that's such a Luffy thing. It's like, you're on my team now, so pick up those drums. So yeah, we see that, and he's just very supportive. And even this idea of obsession, because again, in Whiplash, we see like the obsessive nature of Andrew, who's just practicing, and there's like a darker, more destructive tone to it. Whereas there's still obsession here, but it's celebrated as like passion, and then again we get the group, because there's three of them, group dynamics versus the individual excellence. So just interesting to see like the different ways that they are taken to pursue that, what is ultimately, for in both cases, that artistic greatness, and whether the sacrifice is worth it. So then with that in mind, like, is the sacrifice worth it? Does it answer that question? Does this film answer that question?
I feel like it's not a question of, is the sacrifice worth it? It's a question of, I suppose it is, but it's like, is the sacrifice worth it to you? Is this what you want in your soul? And I feel like, because I feel like for Tamada, it's less of a, oh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and more of a, right now, this is where I'm meant to be. Because I think he says something about like playing with you just feels so right, something along those lines. Like it's sort of like it's his in his soul to be there in that moment. Whereas like for Dai, it's like, no, he is meant to play for everyone. Like he is meant to, what is it, his goal is like to move people, like make people feel emotion through music. And so like for him, the sacrifice is absolutely worth it, because he's gotta like the reward is he's reaching that goal. So yeah, I feel like it's so it's about, is the sacrifice worth? I feel like this answer is yes, the sacrifice is worth it. You've just got to know what you're sacrificing and what you're
why.
sacrificing it for. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what? I think you touched on something quite interesting, because as I was listening to you and just reflecting on the film and the characters, I think the sacrifice is just a byproduct of what they're trying to do or what they're holding on to. Let me say it that way. So, in other words, I'm going to be the best jazz player. I'm going to practice. I'm going to travel to Japan, even if I don't have anywhere to stay. I'm going to play, and practice out in the cold and the rain. The sacrifice isn't even a question. At least that's the way I kind of saw it play out. Because one thing about sacrifice, well, yeah, it's not even that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it goes almost like a level deeper. It's not a consideration. You're just doing the things.
Right.
That's the kind of way I saw it. Because normally when you think about this idea of sacrifice, you're giving something up in order to get something. Which is true. But I never quite got the sense that they felt like they were giving anything up.
Yes, that's such a good point, because they're not they're not like struggling with the conflict of like, oh, to have this, I need to give this to get this. They're not exchanging anything. The quote unquote sacrifice is more like a side effect.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
If you take some medicine, you don't go, I'm sacrificing this thing
in exchange.
You're like, oh, this is a side, in exchange for my health. You're saying this is a side effect of me taking.
Is it even a side effect? Because it's like, and it goes back to that quote: "The obstacle, the obstacle is the way." It is, and I've also not read the book yet. I'm sure I'll get to it at some point, but I've heard him talk about that enough times where, it's something I'm working on, because it's something I've definitely found challenging. But that idea, like, the obstacle is the way. So it's just from these characters' minds, it's not even a side effect. It's all the journey. It's all, this is what we're doing, and it's not like a decision like, oh, we're gonna do this to get this, or it's just, this is what we do. and when you look at it like that, and it's why one of the things I just took away, and I'll just like sit with in this film until it fully sinks in, is like, it's just the journey. We enjoy every moment, and that's what I got from Die. Just, I enjoy every moment on this journey. It's almost like, because for him, another moment that stood out is where they're in the jazz room, and they ask how many people, or you get the view of the room, and there's like hardly anyone there. And there's a bit of a spoiler alert, because that was actually I've got a similar thing like that in Against All Odds. But so that moment, and for him, I think he saw the people, and he's like, oh, it's great because some people are there. So for him, it wasn't like there needs to be 60 people, otherwise I'm not doing it, or this sucks because I want this many. It's just people are here to listen to us. We're a jazz band, and that's another step. And it reminds me of this thing I've heard a couple of times, where it's almost like, if you imagine like going on a journey, you go and taking a flight, and getting to the airport and complaining that you're not at a destination. Like, imagine that. It's like you get to the airport, you check in, and you start complaining that you're not at a destination. Or you get on the plane, and before it takes off, you start complaining, why aren't we here yet? And then
some people are like that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, but when this part, when I'm at check-in, is part of the journey to get to where this part, when I'm on the plane, is part of the journey to get. So why complain? And what these three remind me of, or especially Die, who's just like, every moment is part of the journey, and I enjoy every moment.
Yeah, enjoying it. It's like oh my god, because as you're saying this, like, everything's like falling into place, and like, just, I'm being reminded so much of like early on in my journey, which is funny because you've mentioned there's a moment like that in the manga, and I'm wondering if that was inspired by something that I said about.
It's actually a very real thing that happened to me, but it's
and like, because when I started streaming, there was a comment.
We got that too. Don't worry, we got.
Yeah. Okay, so this is another spoiler, but it's a spoiler because it's something that actually happened in my real life.
Yeah.
But this is why I stopped using Facebook for ages as well. This was the final straw. I was streaming, and guess what? When you start streaming, you probably don't get any views. And I actually always had at least one view, to be honest. I don't think I ever had 0. But someone commented, someone I know or knew in real life, like person that I see their face physically in the real world, said,
I actually forgot that bit.
commented like, oh, why do you stream if no one watches? And I still don't actually care. I never cared because it's part of the journey, and also just enjoying streaming. Like, do it because I love it. The fact that no one's there in the moment never even crossed my mind until that person said it. And like, well, yeah, I'm never going to have any viewers if I don't stream.
Yeah.
And then also just like, I love flying. So it was great that you used that analogy, because I love getting to the airport, even though it's stressful. I love going through security. I love having my boarding pass ready and making sure my passport's there. I love seeing all the planes in their little like spot, like as you walk through to your boarding area. I love all of it. I love being on the plane. I love looking out. I hate it when there's like a really annoying someone on there. But for the most part, like, I'm enjoying the journey. And even when that happens, I'm like, wow, how cool is it that I get to be annoyed on a flying piece of metal that even when I talk to pilots, they're like, yeah, it's magic. The fact that we can make them fly it's magic. How great is this? Even if it sucks right now, even if I can't sleep or I'm aching and I'm tired, this is pretty cool. And actually, I normally don't care that much once I get to my destination.
Oh, right. Okay. There you go.
That's saying something. Yeah, you can learn a lot from that. There's one very interesting thing about that. Everything you said is really true. I think what makes life difficult is that we don't know that we're in the lobby, or we've just checked in. We don't know that we've just sat down and we've hit a bit of turbulence. All we know is that, maybe we've created something and no one's really giving like you the time of day, or the feedback's actually been bad. And I guess one of the tricky things about these journeys is that often, especially for people that are, striking out and creating something from scratch, that there is no manual, there is no, this is the path. Well, broadly speaking, there is, there's some things that you can expect, but everyone's journey specifically is very different. And so we hit all these different bumps, and we don't realize that, oh no, this is actually normal for me. But you will only know that in hindsight. You'll only know that, oh no, this was a lesson I needed to learn. And I guess that the wisdom is perhaps being okay with the facts that things aren't necessarily what you thought on the way to this destination.
That's such a good point. And we also have the comparison to other people's destinations, like other people's journeys. Like we might think we're sitting in a plane because that person's sitting in a plane, when actually we're journeying via boat. And so our journey looks very different, but we don't realize that we're just in a completely different vehicle, making a completely different journey,
date and time.
Yeah,
got a different package.
Exactly. We're watching someone fly on a Concorde. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even exist anymore, and we're like so we're constantly comparing our journey, and we have no way of seeing that. And it's really hard to recognize that while you're on the journey, while you're in the obstacle, that you are in that. And I think it takes a lot of work to and no one's ever gonna like completely get that. Because I actually had that realization the past few days. I was saying just before we start recording that a lot of stuff's happening to me that isn't great. But I feel okay. And one of the reasons why I feel okay is because the stuff that's happening to me, I've been able to see how far I've grown in ways that I'm dealing with it, which then helps me to recognize, oh, I'm growing now. Like, I'm in my goop phase. If you think about like a butterfly becoming a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, I'm currently just like goop in a cocoon, and that's okay. That's okay. This has become a very philosophical.
I had a feeling it might, because yeah, that there's a lot being said in that film
Anyway, yeah, this definitely evokes a lot of those emotions.
for sure. So again, it's great to see the three. I think like Die has such a great like that embodies that, you know, just enjoy the journey, and then you get to see the other perspectives as well. So in the story, what is also a good comparison between like East and West is that there's not a I was going to say there's not a lot of subplots. There isn't any. There's one plot and there's hardly any twists. So again, typically like in the West, you'll get, especially like Hollywood, there has to be a romantic subplot or like the B story. So the story that's just below the main story, but contributes to it. Often like, I think if it's done well, it should some kind of thematic link to the main story. But yeah, in Hollywood, it often means you get the romantic subplot or just some kind of side quest in a story. We don't get that here. We get it's these three. There are other characters on the journey, but it's these three. There's no extra romances, there's no subplots. It's even light on like melodrama, except for that one moment at the end, which we'll get to. And yeah, that's kind of, I thought that was kind of weird. And even like in some ways almost a throwback, because the jazz world, and I don't know if this is a conscious thing on the commentary of the jazz world as it is in Japan, or just from the source material, which itself might also be that commentary. But it's very much a boys' club. It's all guys, basically. Aside from, I guess, I've forgotten her name, but the lady whose space they use to practice. So I love like that. That says a lot as well. You need that person. But do you feel that this story suffered at all by not having another sort of subplot or a subplot in there, or did that not occur to you?
Let me say it this way. Sometime you just want steak.
Yeah. Yep. I'd agree with that. Yeah, sometimes you just need steak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that
Anything
sums
else?
it. Yeah. Yes.
Or she's let me go first.
Mic drop.
It's really hard to follow after that. I was just gonna say what I've already said. Really, this had such strong imagery and storytelling. Like it wasn't missing. It wasn't missing anything. It had everything that it needed to tell its story, and it didn't feel like it was. I didn't watch it and think, you know what this could do with a romance plot. No, we don't need a romance plot. Not everything's about romance. Hollywood. And I love romance. Oh my god, rom-coms are like my favorite. But this just, I didn't even know it was missing. So like other plots like didn't even occur to me.
Yeah. And it's a solid like this 2-hour film. So
yeah.
it's a good length.
Oh, it was 2 hours?
Yeah.
It didn't feel like 2 hours.
No.
It doesn't overstay its welcome. That's a good sign.
And I was even really happy with the extra bit at the end after the post-credit scene.
Oh, I didn't see that.
What?
It was quick. It came quick, but yeah, no, I agree with the steak thing. Just this is like an example of telling the story that needs to be told. No more, no less. And I just wish more people would do that. But I mean, let's talk about the ending, because, like I said, there's not much drama. There's not much like conflict I mean, there is some, but not major until the end. So, like I said, this being the sports drama, the stakes are small, but they're meaningful. And we've talked about that on previous episodes. Like, it doesn't need to be sort of Marvel DC world ending. It means a lot to the characters that we're following. So playing at So Blue means a lot. And we already have the moment where Yokinori feels like he messes up the opportunity for them and he feels like it's over. But then they get the chance. This is it. They're going to make it. And then Yokinori gets run over. All of a sudden, that was not that I wasn't paying attention when I was watching it, but I was like, oh, what? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Did I miss something? Moment. It's like, damn. It's like, okay, so he gets, because he's working part time as like a, I don't know, traffic. I was gonna say traffic warden, not a traffic warden, but conductor. Let's say that. And then he just gets run over, and specifically his hand is his right hand is mangled. But what's interesting is that the story. Then it made sense, because it made a point early on to show him playing with one hand, his left hand. So it set that up early. So it wasn't kind of out of nowhere that he would then come back to play to join them and play one-handed. So that was quite well done there.
Yeah, oh my god, that moment.
Yo,
That
man.
moment of like, oh my god, them walking up to the stage.
I thought
I
he was
swear
dead, by the way.
Oh no, so did I. At first, yeah. And then but I was like in limbo because they made a shot of like they made a point to focus on the hand.
And that's the first thing you asked about, like my hand. So.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh no, it's gonna be. But then I was like, oh, they could do this either way. But it was the moment of him like them walking back onto stage because it was for their encore, and Tamada was like supporting him as well, and like just the emotion that was in like the audience's face. Oh my! I cried. This was such. I need to watch it again.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It was very moving.
Because again, the sports thing, but then the world they're entering, because they're new, they're young, they're new, and the people are like, you might not survive in this. That's basically, I don't think anyone actually, one guy will get to, but yeah, they're like, we're not sure if you make it, and it's a tough crowd. I think that's what is there. And I don't think it was the Soul Blue one. I think it might have been the one before that, but I love how they came out and it's just like, let's hit them with our best. And that is such a great.
For the festival.
Was it? The festival. I love that. It's like, hey, this is our opportunity. Let's hit that. There's so many lessons in this,
because they changed the song.
Yes.
List like just before going on, right, and it's like, you're strong here right from the start, and they do, and they just like you don't need to know that the music's good to understand that scene because of how well. Like you saw like the audience reacting and and it was kind of like don't underestimate us moment, like that whole like back and forth that happened to get them at that point, because they were just being like, that guy just kept saying to die, like
you guys are only here because we laugh. Like,
you're not, like, he just constantly was. But he put some steam under Dai. Like Dai was going all in anyway, regardless. But that made that cranked Dai up to like the free. That was Dai's Super Saiyan. Like
that was Frieza killing Krillin.
You said there were no superpowers in this, but there was. They just weren't so obvious.
No, So that was that moment, and then when they were at So Blue again, different crowd, hard. This is hard mode. But they do it, and there's two of them. There's only two of them, but they do it. They said, we can do it. They did it, and then Yokinori comes back, because that part I wasn't necessarily expecting. I thought like he was done and he might be in the crowd or something, but he's like, "No, I'm going to play with you," and they play, and it just all comes together. Such a great moment. And then what I loved, I felt the same way about Whiplash, and I remember I said this on the podcast that. When I was watching the ending and the back and forth between Andrew and Neiman and Fletcher, I forget the first name, but the teacher, and they were just going and going and going, and that respect was all told through the music. And I remember watching it and thinking like, they need to end this here because there's nothing more to say, and they end it here. And that's how I knew that director knows what he's doing, because there's nothing more to say narratively. I get it. The same thing happened here. It's like it was a longer piece, but that point it all comes together. I was like, end it here. Nothing more needs to be said. This guy knows what he's doing.
Let me tell you something. At that moment, when they finished, I was like, the credits need to roll.
Roll, yeah.
And they did. And I was like, thank God. And in fact, the other thing I'll add to that is that whoever, came up with the score for this, they really know what they're doing. That score at the end, I think it's kind of required listening just to bring you down off that edge. Because it was something. Like, you're literally chucked off the cliff edge. You're just flying through the air with that ending, and you do need something to kind of just give you a bit of a softer landing. And I felt like the credits music really kind of served to do that. Okay. But I'm really with you on that. I think there really was nothing left at that point. No. Yeah, they could have had a scene where they were like, "Oh, well done, we've done it," but no, you don't need it. Because then that's sort of the beginning of another kind of bit.
Exactly.
And,
and just unnecessary. So that they ended it there again. Just well done. And then I just took a quote from Kate Sanchez at the review site, But Why Though? It said, Blue Giant is written, animated, and composed by people who don't just love jazz, but know the absolute emotional resonance that lies inside every improvised note. I thought that just perfectly captures like that end, the way that, I mean, the whole thing, but the way that ended, they just understand the emotion. And this is a emotion emotion film. I mean, it's a good film, and all the narrative bits are there, but this is the emotion film where, and they just get it. So I take it that sort of the ending left everyone satisfied. They didn't feel anything else needed to be said.
Oh yeah. Just they
I think it
they
is.
understood the assignment.
I did really appreciate just that post-credit scene, though, just like wrapping it up with a nice little bow.
Yeah. The because it was, I'm trying to think. It came relatively quick. It wasn't like full credits and then it was like, was it like a more of a mid-season?
It was mid-roll.
Mid-roll, yeah. And yeah, just everything in this was just like done well. I mean, we've spoken about the visuals a lot because it's key, obviously the music, but the way the music combines with the visuals, and it reminded me or made me think of Arcane for another piece who does such a good job of combining the music and the visuals to add to the narrative. Different stories, different sort of styles and everything, but just the execution of it on a similar high level. So like this is the characters are in this are like 3-dimensional, but there's a 2D look. I feel we need to get like an animator interview on here to explain this, because I feel there's a lot of that things done in 3D to look 2D. And I can't remember why that is, but we'll work on that. We'll get some animator interviews going. And then you get these moments when they're playing that just take a different different visual imagery in there. And it just adds to the emotion. Again, like jazz is the whole idea is like improvisation and that, and emotion and feeling the music, and it just does that so well. I do love how they put that together. And again, like I mentioned at the beginning, you've got real people playing, like real like performers playing that music, and it just all comes across. And yeah, I don't even have a question for that. It's just just remarking on that like well executed scenes where the jazz is portrayed in these different types of visuals. And there was a note where, so when the jazz is, and we haven't mentioned this, but in the story the group called themselves Jass, so JASS, which, you know, so Jazz, the group is playing and in full swing. There's an effect that almost looks rotoscoped, which is animation technique, usually where you trace over live action footage frame by frame to create movement in animated sequences. But they do it here, so it's animation on animation, but it just gives it a different look. Yeah, I mean, we already said it, but the scenes look really cool. I was going to ask if anyone found it like jarring, just going from one type of animation effect to another, but I feel like, did it work for you both?
There was moments where it was jarring for me, and it took me out a little bit, especially because the other parts, like visually, were just like so stunning. And then there was bits. It was normally like when he was playing, and it just looked.
There were some bits that look kind of weird.
Yeah, kind of remind me of some of the Netflix animations. Like not the. I'm not talking. Obviously, I'm not talking Arcane. I'm talking about the.
Yeah.
I've not seen that, but yeah, there was a point. I feel like back in like 2020, 2021 maybe, of a very specific style, and that's what it was. And that doesn't quite work for me, and I feel like it didn't work for everything else that was going on. But then it was just those moments.
I felt that it didn't. I wouldn't say it threw me out of it necessarily. I guess it did because I was thinking about it. So I guess maybe it did, but it wasn't too big of a deal for me. But I did notice like, okay, this looks quite different and feels like a shift. And then we're back. But yeah, I just took it as we're in the jazz mode now, so it's gonna look a bit different. But yeah, just the way they went, and they really leaned into it. Like, there's full, like, there's a different type of animation. I remember I was going to go into Arcane spoilers. Let me not do that. We'll save that for the episode. But yeah, the Arcane's the thing that came to mind in terms of combining the way the visuals and the music combine so well on that level to add to the narrative. And the other thing was that it was very confident in terms of like the jazz pieces, the jazz scenes were long and they were allowed to play long. Whereas again, might be an East versus West thing, is that in the West maybe they'd be cut off like shorter and just get to the point and go to the next thing. But here they're playing the songs like even at the end, the last song at the end, it's a long sequence, and having that confidence. And I recently went to an event at BAFTA, and I met. So it was a young BAFTA, so it was for a family audience. So I went to a thing the evening before, and then the family day afterwards. And there was a director, an animation director, Simone Giampaolo, who is one of the people we might try and get on. No promises, but had a quick chat with him afterwards, and he made this point in a discussion that I think we were talking about Studio Ghibli in particular, but anime, is that they let things breathe. And he was saying like in the West, like say Marvel is the example he used, where you've got a hit, something's got to happen, someone's got to say something, and the script doesn't always get time to breathe. And it just reminded me of that, because here the music gets time to breathe, and I appreciate that. Basically, it helps. Again, back to the earlier point, if you don't like jazz, maybe it's too long, or if you don't want to appreciate it. But I was like, oh yeah, it's nice. They're just letting this play. Like I feel like I'm listening to an album, just watching this film.
It's a really good point. I think as someone that likes jazz, it's easy to forget that actually, these are quite long songs. Especially like by today's standards, like, someone will release a track and it's like 2 minutes, we're done. Sometimes a minute and a half and we're done.
Yeah.
Even Kendrick's new album, there's a couple 2-minute songs on there, but they work though. They fit. Not if you're Drake, but anyway, that's a different conversation.
I remember, do you remember when there'd be songs that were like 10 minutes long?
Yeah.
Could not get away with that in today's attention span deficit.
Which is a shame. Yeah. So, and then the other sort of visual thing I noticed is that the way they showed effort. So, particularly with Tamada, but even with, I think Yokonori had some moments where you can see like they're sweating and they're making an effort to keep up. Whereas Dai is just he's in the zone, and I like that.
He sweated quite a bit as well.
Or specifically the effort sweat. I guess is not because they're all making an effort. There was a specific moment where Mada was like he had an internal dialogue, was like, oh, I'm trying to
they're
keep
not
up.
even sweating.
Yeah,
that bit.
And then there were a couple, I think there were like 2 old men in the audience who were like, oh yeah, that kid is working. and these two got something. So it was sort of that kind of specific. But yeah, you're right, there were jazz is sway, so
but I feel like they like showed like, oh, they're all putting like a lot of effort in, but Tamada's like
really
like trying to keep up. And there was like some scenes where they like kind of sort of focused in on like Tamada's drumming, and you kind of like felt it, like at least for me, like I had like the sensation that it gave me is like when you're running. When you're running, because I've been running on the treadmill a lot recently, when you're running on the treadmill and it's like at a pace that's just a bit too fast for you.
Right, yes.
And when you're like, I have to keep up, otherwise I'm a fall flat on my face.
Yes.
That's the feel, that's the sensation that I got from Tamada's playing with them. It was like that,
Yeah, no, fair play to him. And like I said, so he's one of the 3 main characters. There's not a lot of subplot here, but there are other characters. We've talked about some of them. I don't know if anyone particularly stood out to you other than the 3. I'd say, I mean, it's tight cast, and it's all about that success journey, or specifically the journey. The 2 contrasting ones is the woman who lets them use their space. I don't think I've got her name actually. I feel it's like Akiko. I think that's, because his sister was Ayaka, and so I think it's Kiko. So Dai goes to listen to jazz, but he gets there and there's no live performances. And the lady's like, we haven't done that in ages, but I can put on some jazz if you like. And then he does that, and then they use that as a base. And again, I'm projecting the entrepreneurial journey onto this, you need someone to just give you the chance, or either give you the chance or give you the space to work, to to advise you, to guide you in that sense. And then the one that really like just is you've mentioned, in the guy who books them, and then just in their face is like, I don't even care about you guys. You're there to warm up for the real people. Like I think he even has this line like, an audience, something about like bombing, like an audience likes to see.
Yeah, but an audience likes to see someone bomb or something like that.
And that's why I got, and that is also, that's so annoying, but also that's a real person that just, I don't have faith in you.
I think what was interesting about Akiko is like, Akiko clearly had some history with like the picture, and like, so it's clear like she's not just some little butter lady, like there's history there. And because like she's impressed that Dai knows Jass, like,
yes, because that's what sparks her.
Yeah, but there's another interesting character. There's a guy that like really supports them and asks for autographs, and it's when
I forgot about it.
Yeah, and like when pianist
Yokinori, because he ignores him.
He ignores him, but then he goes back to, and
that's when he's humbled.
That man is so sweet, so sweet. He's just appreciating them and their talent, and is just there to support and see them grow. I think he makes a comment.
Yeah, he even said it. To Mada, he said, "I've come to see like how you've grown."
Yeah, and I was just like, oh my god, I can't. And the detail that went into this character, but obviously was like such a like symbol of their journey and of the people, and of their goals as well, because obviously one of Dai's goals is to make people feel emotion through music, and I feel like that's like an encompassing of that. And then the guy that owns the big club, or is like the booker. Yeah, the one that like does all the booking, because he doesn't. It's not that he underestimates them. He's just got high standards.
Yeah, and he's not sure if they can meet it.
Yeah, and he doesn't want them to. It's like he doesn't want them to flop. He wants them to be able to meet the standards. So he's like, I don't think you're ready. Like, not saying that you won't be ready, but right now, I don't think. But then when he sees them and he sees their talent, he believes in them wholeheartedly, that he lets them play as a duo.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's not a done thing.
Yeah, and the speech that he gives, oh my god, just feels so emotional. I need to watch it again.
Yeah, I need to watch this. And I'm just thinking, like, because it is a small cast, and outside of the main three, there's not a whole lot everyone else has to do, but it's all effective. It's all adding to that. And again, that's another character you need who's like, here's the opportunity. I'm not sure if you're ready for it, but here's an opportunity to do it. Prove me wrong. And again, that is a character on that journey. So yeah, this is a really good film.
Yeah, I mean, I think on that kind of point, like, you always kind of need that person that allows you to grow into like your greatness, if you will. This is actually just, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but this is the age-old issue of, promote me. Well, you're not good enough. Well, if you promote me, I'll be good enough.
Big enough, yeah.
It's that kind of thing. So you do need people to kind of open the door and take a risk on you at times in the journey.
Yeah. Any, maybe of the three, but maybe any character, anyone you identified with most?
I think it's Dai for me, but I'm a Luffy fan, so go figure.
What about you, Tazziii?
Hamada.
Oh, interesting.
Constantly working hard.
And I feel like he's Usopp
Never
by comparison.
Yeah. He's. I'm here with the Giants, and I'm just trying to keep up.
Oh no.
I feel like I appreciated, or maybe appreciate is not the word, but Yokinori, that because he had to go through yes, I've got the technical, but you need a bit more, and I feel that I've understood that it's like, just you can have the technical where you need a bit more to get to where you need to get to, and that's a good lesson that he was humbled in that way. So Yeah, no, it is a good film. All right, we can themes and final thoughts. I think we've talked about some of them, but I'll just like go through and you can tell me what sort of resonated with you the most. Definite strong themes. I feel like I'm gonna, because I always like to bring up themes from like stuff we've watched or talked about on the podcast when I do like school or college talks. Actually, I've done it in some conferences. I mentioned Kubo and the two strings in a develop conference. So I just like doing that, but I feel this is one I need to add to that list I bring up. So obsession, we talked about it. Diary practices obsessively, but here it's like a positive. It's a admirable passion. The way he just plays. I'm here to play. Personal thing that I got from it is sort of along that lines is like studying the greats and your craft, because there's a lot of references to greats in jazz. And one of the things I've been mindful of needing to do better on is knowing who has come before you in the places that we operate in, whether it's like video games or comics, like film and television as well, because we want to do animation. So you just need to know more. Can't just come in and be blind and expect like to get what you want to get. So that was a good sort of lesson, another good lesson for me. Individual excellence versus group harmony. So even though it's clear one stands out above the others talent wise, they're in it together. And even though like Yokonori tells Dai from the beginning that what separates jazz from like rock is that bands that form don't stay together, and even calls Dai as a stepping stone at the beginning. Little did he know that he's the stone. And then the handling doubt from others, and I feel that was something where they got a lot of doubt, either people doubting the dreams of not sure indirectly, or outright telling them no, or just that guy that we spoke about who's like, I'm just here to see you fall because that benefits me or whoever I'm supporting. But they persevere, they get through it, and yeah, that's just another good lesson in this journey. So I feel there's others as well we've sort of talked about, but yeah, is anything that resonated with you personally?
I would say that well, to keep it very simple, the music. It was the expression of the music, and I think it was a really great aspect of this film, because you don't need to be an expert. You don't even need to follow the plot to just enjoy the music and the expression of it. I think this was a film that really connects you and brings you into the music in a way. If you're more, into the sound aspect of things, they had that covered. If you're more into the kind of visual aspect of things, they had that covered. And then, of course, if you're just more into the kind of thinking space, like the story itself sort of brought you into it. And if you were able to kind of get the full, I guess, sensation of all of them, then I felt like that really kind of resonates quite strongly. And yeah, I thought that was a really great aspect to it. Just the fact that they were able to have such an impact through the music, through the songs that they played. Even the last song, not the very last song, but the penultimate song, where it was just the sax and the drums. You're there like, how are they going to do it? But like musically, they really brought it with just sax and drums. And it said so much. Like, this was real communication with sound. So that's a big takeaway for me. And yeah, definitely want to watch it again.
Yeah, Tazzy, any like takeaways from that, or just the film in general?
Oh my god, there was just so many.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna say that kind of transcendent effect of the music is gonna be the main standout thing for me, especially as I feel like it's just a reminder, because when I don't listen to music, life gets a lot harder. And when I listen to music, especially the right music for the moment, it completely transforms like just everything, how I'm feeling. Help me work through something, like the moment where they choose the perfect song for the rain. Yeah, that transcendent effect of music that they so beautifully displayed.
Is definitely, this is this is one to watch again. The only other thing from me, I guess, just there was a commentary on or from Yokinori who has this outlook that art cannot be made with hard work alone. It also requires talent. And when he first meets Dai, that's what he's looking for. Like, do you have the talent? I think he has a line like, I can't even remember the line, but it's something like you've either got it or you don't, and that's it. But then, which is why it's important to have Tamada, who doesn't have the talent and he's pure hard work, and he comes in and he might not be as good as the others, but he makes it because he's there at the end and on the big stage. And I feel that's an interesting commentary as well. I don't know if you both agree with that.
I agree with that. There's a moment where he cries when he hears Dai's play, because that was the moment where I was like, is he good?
Because even his reaction, he's like, I'll call you later, just go.
I'll call you later. Yeah, and I'm like,
is that
what
good?
is he good? And then he's literally crying because he's like, that's talent.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, definitely. I think I've said this to people before, like there's just some things, you know, when you just don't have the aptitude for it. Yeah, everyone can practice and like get good at something, but there's a level, yeah, and certain people just have an aptitude for something where as soon as they start learning, like Dai, he self-taught himself in such a quick time because he's got talent.
He's got the aptitude, yeah, he's got talent, yeah, and you just need a little bit of something. So yeah, and it did also that line, like, I'll call you, triggered something in me, because I can't remember, don't know if you remember this, Lao, but there was a time when we did our first comic, the first part of Samurai Chef, and there was a comic artist that we connected. I can't remember how we connected, but I think I gave him a copy, or I sent him a copy digitally, and I remember there was a day or an evening where I had like literally like 5 missed calls from him, and I was like, oh, either this is, I don't know if this is good or it's just terrible. He's calling me because this is something good, or he's calling me because I've messed up Japanese manga and he wants me to stop like right now, right this moment.
Yeah.
So I remember I nervously like called him back, and he's like, oh, I read it, and like I think he said like this is the best manga sort of outside of Japan I've come across in a while. And I was like, phew, because I generally thought like he hates this and he's just going to tell me to stop making it. So is that kind of like, okay, cool, where we might be onto something if this guy is saying, giving the thumbs up, then we might be onto something. So is that kind of moment? It was just got that trigger moment in that scene. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Yeah, very good film. Definitely like resonated on like multiple levels for me, and just something that I'll come back to, and let us know what you think. If you were one of the few that got to see it in a cinema, maybe that would have been an experience, like hearing that in a cinema, or have seen it otherwise. Let us know. Before we wrap up for this episode, for another, well, not 200th time, but some number of times, I give this week's storytelling tip. Each time we do a deep dive on the podcast, I like to pull out a storytelling tip for others to consider when making their stories. So this is a consideration from someone who also creates stories and likes to learn from the techniques or mistakes of others. For today's episode, I wanted to discuss making use of the underdog story when it's not a sports story. So this is something we talked about, that idea of the sports story in a jazz clothing. That is also like an underdog story. So that underdog story is like very resonant. So it's a very resonant format in storytelling. And it's great because it combines struggle and perseverance and eventually triumph in a way that connects with audiences. So it's often shown through the lens of sports, but it can find a home in other genres, like we've seen musical, anime, but science fiction, whatever it might be. So I wanted to take an opportunity to just explore some common narrative beats and see how that can be maybe adapted in other settings and with other characters. So there's a bunch of beats that we mentioned earlier that make the underdog story work. But a few of them are like relatability, that desire to overcome challenges. So we, the audience, identify with protagonists who face adversity because most people have experienced adversity, moments of self-doubt, failure, feeling underestimated. We've all been there for the most part. I don't know if those people who haven't, but So we get it. It's relatable. We know about the conflicts and stakes. So underdog stories naturally create high stakes and that emotional tension, and because the odds are stacked against the protagonist. And in Catharsis, at the end, we get a triumph. So a triumph, and specifically a triumph against the odds. So the underdog's success provides that moment of release, fulfills like our yearning for justice and vindication, however that might relate to the story. So it's a journey from struggle to triumph that is emotionally rewarding, and it's hopeful as well. So if they can do it, so can I. I feel that's the takeaway from a lot of these stories. So they appeal to that human spirit and desire to like overcome obstacles or achieve justice. And for me personally, the ultimate one is like fulfill our potential. That's what I love in these stories. So in Blue Giant, we see Dai, who has a clear goal. I want to become world-class saxophonist. So we know what he wants, makes his journey easy to root for. And we talked about Whiplash and a comparison of both, because they both explore the journeys of young musicians striving for greatness. But here we get a story that celebrates the emotional journey or self-expression and the joy of music, whereas Whiplash, in contrast, goes to like the darker side of ambition. So both valid sort of interpretations, but just, interesting to see the different directions. So as we said, we see the protagonist with raw talent. Dai is self-taught, is driven by passion and desire to move people through music, and his raw talent emerges as an extension of his emotional connection to jazz. And the lack of formal training doesn't matter. It symbolizes his authentic approach to the art form. We see the initial challenges, so setbacks. He arrives in Tokyo, nowhere to stay, struggles to find his place in the scene, and has to prove his worth with more seasoned people. But his failures are always met with persistence, a positive, almost naive, but definitely not naive, because he knows what he's about. And it's great to see, enjoying the journey. Like Lao said right at the beginning, we get the training, the development. We kind of get like, if you want to take it to sports and like Rocky, like the montage, we get that kind of moment. We see their growth, Dai's growth. We see the others grow, long hours of practice, collaborative sessions, live performances, and it's all in joy. So they're enjoying the journey. So, and it's all about honing the craft. Again, another lesson in there. And it just feels, organic, because they love doing this. They keep doing it and they get better and they get opportunities because of it. And in sports dramas, the underdog story, you get the big performance. Usually it's some kind of championship game. Here, it's about the big performance that's so blue. And the triumph is measured in the ability to emotionally connect with the audience rather than just about the technical precision, which is what Yokinori has to learn. And this narrative that rewards persistence and that authenticity. So in other stories, we get similar underdog stories like, say, relatability. My Hero Academia, Deku is in a world where people have powers. He has no powers. Even like Blue Clover is one recently I've started watching. Everyone's got magical abilities. Protagonist there has literally none and is told over and over. So then that makes the eventual growth, like really satisfying. Conflict and stakes. There's a film, Hidden Figures, which is about the success of 3 black women at NASA. That's also a very emotional story. That's a great story, but it feels monumental because of their growth, but also they symbolize like progress against racism and sexism that they constantly face throughout the film. So they triumph against that. And in Catharsis, if anyone's seen The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, you see the success of a struggling single father facing homelessness while he's trying to secure a stable future for himself and his son. And it means so much when we get to the end. I guess I should have done a spoiler alert there, but he triumphs. The underdogs always triumph. But we see him overcoming those systemic barriers and personal hardships to achieve his dreams. And it makes all the difference. So here are 4 tips to consider when using the underdog narrative format for your story. Number 1 is focus on emotional stakes. We said it many, many times. It's about emotional connection from the protagonist to the audience, and the struggle should be deeply personal. And Pursuit of Happiness is very much, I mean, they're all like that, but I feel for me, like Pursuit of Happiness really feels personal. So even if the goal is external, the real stakes are internal. So whether it's like proving their worth, overcoming self-doubt, whatever it might be. Number 2 is show, don't tell growth. And that's why montages are always a feature in these types of films. So you want to see, or stories. So you want to see that incremental success. Again, it makes it relatable. We can see how they're improving, and it feels like achievable. So you want the audience to feel the protagonist's growth rather than simply coming back and saying, "Oh, we're great now. We did it." It doesn't hit the same. And number 3 is make the setbacks meaningful. So when they lose, they need to lose. It needs to be all over moment. So it can't just be arbitrary. They have to also challenge the protagonist's core belief. So they have to confront the weakness, because that's what they're going to overcome to achieve. But you've got to get to that point. So yeah, don't be afraid to put your protagonist in difficult situations. And number 4 is that climactic resolution with depth. So again, external and internal final showdown should have both in the resolution. So whether the protagonist wins or loses, the audience needs to feel that if they have achieved something profound. So that's key. It's in some ways the internal is more impactful than the external in these stories. So think about that. Yeah, and just it's a good format. It works. So by making use of those beats, it doesn't have to be a sports story, but you can make a story that can connect with audiences on a deeper level. So that's the storytelling tip for episode 200. We are nearly done, but let's wrap up with our guest and the reason that we're here.
Hey mayamada, it's Moo, indie game developer. I think my highlights from being on the Story X Story podcast was probably sharing my journey on Mythmatch of learning how to be a creative director and how to communicate with other people. A story that really affected me recently was Videoverse by Kinmoku Games. It recreates a bulletin board experience from the 90s or early 2000s, and it really captures that feeling of getting a glimpse into people's lives from a distance, but thinking about how you present yourself and how they're presenting themselves and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was a really great experience for me. And in terms of if I'd rather fight 200 Psyduck riding horses or one horse-sized Psyduck, it would almost definitely be the horse-sized Psyduck. I mean, I just want to see it. I want to give him a big cuddle.
Marking 200 episodes of Story X Story. Lao, do you remember starting the podcast?
No. I don't. The thing
If you
is,
don't remember that,
do you know, I really don't. You know, maybe this is just a testament to the way we would work. Like, I don't think it's always the case that you know where one thing starts and the other thing ends. It's just kind of like a collaboration.
yeah,
So
we never wrote anything down.
yeah, exactly. So
That's the problem.
I think it's cool. It's really cool to see that, you know, we've passed the like an amazing landmark. And I was saying earlier, right, that, you know, the statistically, if you can make it to 20 episodes, you're probably going to be in for the long haul. And you've so far like surpassed that. And it's really great to see that, you know, there's been so much great conversation over the years. And like, yeah, to make 200 episodes like that is massive. So yeah, really, really glad, to be honest.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. And I will fill in that gap for you, because the way this started is so Lao for a while had been suggesting / nudging / bugging that we should do a podcast. And I felt that it was, I don't think I said this, but I think it was probably like unnecessary. So keep in mind, this is when maybe we were doing events and stuff, but it was mostly like the comics and things we were focused on. And it just felt I didn't see, I guess I didn't see the point, to be honest. And then also I wasn't sure, because I'd never done a podcast. I don't know if you had done anything like, I mean, I guess you perform music because you perform on stage. So it's not something that I had done. So maybe it was like a comfortability thing. And then I think you just mentioned it enough times that like after a year or something, like, okay, let's do it. And then we did the first one, which is, which I played a bit of in episode 100, which was the Marvels. We did an episode 0 on the Marvels, which never came out. And then we did a few more. And then you left. And then I had to... So, because the key thing is that Lao was the host and I was not the host. So then I let Lao do the heavy lifting. So then Lao left and then I had to do the heavy lifting. So that was annoying. But it was only annoying for like one episode, and then I got used to it. And then Tazziii came. So that's how that all worked out. So yeah, Lao is the reason that we are doing this podcast. I definitely can't take credit for starting this. It was not my idea.
I think it was even Lao that asked me to take his place on the podcast.
Yeah, that sounds like a Lao thing to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my memory's so bad. But I think, like, you know what? It's one of those things where I think you know, when you go on that journey, right, you end up learning so many things, and I'm confident that you've helped so many people, and just like learned so much through the process itself, that it's just been, yeah, it's like really paid off going through that initial pain. I'm speaking to you specifically, Nigel. so, so yeah, honestly, it's really great that you've persevered with it, and I really look forward to like seeing what happens in the next 100 episodes, and I'm pretty sure you'll get to 1,000. I'm pretty sure of that.
Dude, that's big. I listened to a podcast that reached 1,000 episodes. That's a lifestyle. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Just yeah.
Yeah, and now, what are your any favorite or impactful stories for 2024? They don't have to be new, just new to you.
Oh goodness, the foundation has been profound in its impact. So the books by Isaac Asimov, I think I've said his name right.
Oh.
And Isaac Asimov also does the iRobot books as well, which is also part of the same universe, from what I've been told. So I was kind of like, when I started finding out about all this, I was like, no one talks about this guy that much like that. Like, it's normally Frank Herbert, Dune, and obviously all these others. But yeah, the foundation is just such a great story. If you like sci-fi, obviously, if you're not a sci-fi fan, you might not like it. But there's a lot in there, and it's had a deeply profound impact on me, and also just in a strange way, I think the book's a little bit prophetic. I don't think it's trying to be, but I think in a strange way it sort of is. Just looking at how the world has changed so much over the last 20 years, and we're kind of entering the world of AI now, and you're like, I wonder what the future holds. And this is a book that sort of has its own take on how things change over time. So yeah, that's been a big one for me.
That's interesting. Okay. And Isaac Asimov says this idea of like 3 laws of robotics, that like a robot may not injure a human being, must obey orders given it to a human being, other than when it conflicts with the first orders. That's often brought up, but I don't think it's not in there. It's like a fictional thing, because people quote it, but it's not actually in robotics, and I don't think it's in AI, but it's brought up often, that some laws. Yeah, I thought I recognized that name.
Oh yeah, and funnily enough, I think that AI does have something that's kind of like analog to that. Because obviously, as they've started to tinker with this stuff, they're like, oh crap, we better make sure this thing doesn't turn on us. So they seem to have some
like you can't say, how do I
principles.
make a bomb, kind of thing. So
Yeah, exactly. It's all of that kind of stuff. That's another podcast, to be fair.
Yeah, thank you for answering those questions. We do have a segment, actually, where our listeners can send us questions or feedback, and we will read them out. So you can jump in our Discord or on social media. We also have an email address, studio77@mayamada.com, or on Spotify you can send a voice message. I am very excited for the first one of those that we get. But yeah, Lau, do you have anything you want to shout out, any news or projects or anything?
Oh goodness. Okay. If it's still available at the time of listening to this, I created a little children's activity book called the Doggy Woggy Busy Book. So yeah, you can look out for that. You can just Google it. I'm pretty sure I own the name. So just Doggy with a Y and then Woggy with an I, which I'm also told is a little bit controversial, but I didn't know that when I came up with it. Let's move past that. Anyway, it's Doggy Woggy Busy Book. And yeah, that's a children's kind of activity book. Teaches them the alphabet, numbers, the time, and a few other cool little things to help them in their early development for 3-year-olds and over. And it has a distinctive kawaii kind of look to it. So yeah, you can tell I've been influenced by Japanese anime and that kind of thing.
Love that.
But yeah, check it out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you for coming back and yeah, starting this whole thing, starting this journey. Speaking of the journey, so yeah, always appreciate you coming back and chatting with us.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Yeah, hopefully people enjoyed this and the other 199 episodes that we've done. If you have enjoyed this, please do make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and that just helps us for visibility, leaving comments and sharing episodes as well. All that helps some algorithm somewhere. So 5-star reviews, put that in there too. All helps us reach new listeners and fans of story discussions. I mentioned we are story creators. We have a new story in the works, Origins Against All Odds. We are going to be, if not already are by the time you're listening to this, reworking the website, or not just reworking, doing a whole complete different website, but having a temporary thing in place while we work on that in the background. So bear with us, but yeah, we'll find a way you can still buy the new book as well. You can join our Studio 77 Discord. Itself will be completely changed eventually, and support us there, chat with us as we make these changes. And then yeah, next year we've got sort of new plans. Our Do I Look Like a Gamer video game representation campaign will be back. Yearly initiative for diversity and inclusion in the games industry and wider culture. We're going to be restarting the plans there, including the photo campaign featuring 40 players and makers, as well as the schedule of events. So head to looklikeagamer.com and you can get involved there. And yeah, as for the podcast, we're going to be on a break soon as we wrap up season 6 and coming back for season 7 for episodes that includes creator interviews, video game discussions, and deep dives into stories across pop culture. You can always give us a shout directly. Our email address is studio77@mayamada.com, and our website with links to subscribe is mayamada.com/storyxstory. So thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe and remember, 200 and counting. See you all next time.